Minister for Communication and Works, the Honorable Mark Vanterpool. Director of Disaster Management, Ms. Charlene Dapp. Director Water Management, AMEC, Foster Wheeler Environment and Infrastructure, Mr. Nick Jarrett. Dr. Drexel Glasgow, Director of Projects, Ministry of Finance, and CDB Project Coordinator. Media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. On behalf of the Government of the Virgin Islands, the Ministry of Communication and Works is pleased to announce the commencement of the Hydrology Study and Flood Risk Production Consultancy, a contract that was signed on the 28th of March 2017 with AMEC Foster Wheeler Environment and Infrastructure UK Ltd. This study entails a comprehensive study of the Road Town catchment area with a view of providing recommendations for reducing the likelihood of floods, as experienced in 2003 and 2010, and also to create awareness of building resilience to heavy rainfall events within the city of Road Town. I now call on the Minister of Communication and Works, the Honorable Mike Vanterpool, to make a few remarks.
Wonderful to see all you, my staff and my team there, the wonderful press. We always have our good GIS team here doing all the hard work, along with the good press from the various other press and the rest of the team from disaster management. Welcome, y'all. Before I get too deep in, I want to thank Dr. Glasgow and his team, especially Ms. Haley Trott and Mr. Smith here. Yeah. They've been doing a wonderful job making sure that the CDB program is moving, and they are full steam now, so I want to thank them for the good work that they're doing. My PS, who is here, Mr. McMaster and his team, also appreciate all the work you're doing. On behalf of the Government of the Virgin Islands, I want to welcome everyone here as we launch this hydrology study to assess the territory's vulnerability to the risk associated with flooding, especially in the main basin of Road Town, the city of Road Town. The territory of the Virgin Islands, I see Jan here, Jan back. Thank you, Madam City Manager, to be here. The territory of the Virgin Islands is in the hurricane belt, which means that every year we're very likely to experience hazardous weather conditions that very often cause damage to our infrastructure here in the territory. In October 2010, during Tropical Storm Otto, several of our islands suffered extensive damage to our roads, drainage, and retaining walls existing. The Government of the Virgin Islands is grateful for the support of Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, which provided a $15.67 million loan to assist with the rehabilitation and reconstruction works. I am pleased to say that we are now nearing completion of these works across the islands. As part of the agreement with CDB, there was a technical assistance component where experts would assess the drainage system within major associated guts with a view to mitigating further damage. The capital, city of Road Town, the commercial hub of the Virgin Islands, was particularly affected by the storm water flooding, causing significant damage and disruption of economic activity. The study of the Road Town catchment is intended to be a model to treat drainage problems more systematically and comprehensively. As part of this hydrology study, consultants AMEC Foster Wheeler Environment and Infrastructure Limited will examine the factors which made our watersheds, natural channels and drainage systems vulnerable and recommend ways to prevent further compromise to our infrastructure. Our government looks forward to the completion of this study, as its implementation will help to reduce loss of livelihood and the property and environmental damage. It is important to note, ladies and gentlemen, that the hydrology study will be done in consultation with the residents of the Virgin Islands. This is important as many persons who live in the territory, especially in the areas that we'll be studying, have good ideas of what has happened in the past, how guts have run, how they have affected, and what changes we have made that caused the guts not to run as it should, so that we can get the right understanding. Consultants will conduct stakeholder meetings at the beginning, during, and at the end of the project to get feedback from residents, as I just spoke about, both the public and the private sector, non-governmental and community organizations. I want to encourage everyone not to see this as a study that's being done without them, but to encourage everyone to get involved and give any recommendations or suggestions or any historical factors as we work together to develop resilient communities in our little here Virgin Islands. Our government extends its full support to the consultants. The JAGR, the Ministry of Communication and Works, will provide expertise from the Public Works Department, support from the Department of Disaster Management, Town and Country Planning Department, Survey Department, the Ministry of Finance, the Social Development Department, and the Conservation and Fisheries Department. The hydrology study is expected to be completed within 10 months at a contract value of $499,340, $499,340, and we look forward to getting value for money, good value for money. I want to thank you all for listening, thank you all for coming out, and really look forward for your continued support. And just to add, for Mr. Jagger to understand that at the end of the day, I'm a minister, but I'm also a politician, and you're working in my district. So I expect a good job from you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister. Director of Disaster Management, Ms. Charlene Dabrio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, Minister, it's in your district, and we're going to get it right. This one we're going to get right. So the study of the Rotown watershed will really assist in alleviating the damages to businesses and the residential community. We know of the impacts of the flood events in 2003 and 2010 and the devastation that that had on many of our businesses and their inability to recover very quickly. We are looking forward to working with AMEC or IMEC, tomatoes, because we think that the skill that they bring to the table will significantly strengthen the National Spatial Repository by identifying the flooding hotspots and preparing rainfall intensity duration curves. Dr. Glasgow knows what those are. We don't have those for the BVI, and those are very important engineering elements that are necessary to help us to better design these systems as we work to improve our infrastructure. The plans through the project call for the development of a flood mitigation strategy, which will include an emergency response plan that will be specifically for the area of Rotown. EMEC has also included in their proposal the application of the global climate change models, which will give us an indication of how the rainfall events will affect us into the future. So we are looking at modeling that will talk about 50-year and 100-year and 5-year return periods. The details of these models are very important for us because they help not only to identify the critical receptors, but they also help us to better understand how we need to protect the residents of the Rotown area. We see this project as being very essential for strengthening the general land use development in the BVI. But one thing that is most critical for us at the Department of Disaster Management, and I'm sure for other government departments, is the whole issue of community engagement. And I know the Rotown managers here, and we want to assure you that we have worked with AMEC to design a program that will allow for engagement of every single element of the community. We want people to come out and give us their views. It's very important for us to be able to understand how people experience the floods, how they dealt with them, how they affected them. And so we want to look at the young, we want to look at the old, we want to learn from them. And there's a major component of the project that will look at community engagement. One of the other areas that the project will focus on is about the whole issue of raising awareness and education about the flood hazards and how they affect the BVI. So this is something that is going to be specifically tailored for the Road Town community. The plan is, and I'm sure the minister will agree with me, that when this is finished, we will have a fantastic model for Road Town, but we will also have a model that can be adapted to other communities, and that is essential for us to get out of this project. So yes, it is a study, but it's going to give us an opportunity to understand the people who work and live and the people who have a personal connection with the Road Town community, and we want them to feel that they're part of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director. I now call on Dr. Drexel Glasgow, Director for Projects and also our designated CDB Project Coordinator.
Honorable Minister, Dr. Jarrett, Abreu, Media, Ministry of Communication and Works, and other civil servants. I found it useful to provide you with some facts about the actual tender process, so you would know. The Minister gave a very good job of wrapping up the entire scope of the CDB project, and the Director gave you some of the ideas of what we can expect coming out of the study that would be useful for government. So I'm going to talk a bit about the tender process. The tender process was in two phases. We had an expression of interest phase and a request for proposal phase. The expression of interest, that phase began in January 14th of 2016, with the submission date for those bids in February 8th. Expression of interest is a way to shortlist consultants. We had 24 consultants that responded to the expressions of interest. And they range from 13 countries: BVI, Montserrat, United Kingdom, Canada, Antigua, St. Lucia, Barbados, Suriname, Bahamas, Germany. Did I say Suriname? Suriname. Italy. So as you can see, these are all CDB member countries. So we had responses from over the globe. Basically how it works, we would put out our ad. It's also advertised on the CDB's website. So people in the world can see us. So we need not think that we're a small country. We're very large, and the world is getting smaller. So with the expressions of interest, as per CDB's rules and guidelines, we're supposed to select no less than 3 firms and no more than 6. So in all, we were able to get 6 firms based on the evaluation of those expressions of interest. Those firms that went ahead were Mott MacDonald of the UK, IBI Group of Canada, SEAC Solutions of Jamaica. I think I missed Jamaica. I didn't say Jamaica. HR Wallingford of UK, and AMEC Foster Wheeler. These firms were provided with full terms of reference, and they were required or invited to submit a technical and a financial proposal. So this RFP process, it began on July 29, 2016, with a submission date of September 13, 2016. All of the persons invited submitted, so all 6 firms. And as a result of the process, the lowest evaluated bidder was AMEC Foster Wheeler. The minister mentioned that the contract was signed on March 28th in the amount of $499,340 with a duration of 10 months. So we are very confident that as a result of the process, we were able to secure the best consultant to do the work. And as the director mentioned, we went through what CDB requires as a negotiation process. So we negotiate a contract. And this was done in collaboration with both the Director of Disaster Management and also Town and Country Planning Department. And we had several meetings, and they were able to let Dr. Jarrett know exactly what they expect to ensure that the BVI gain as much as possible out of this endeavor. So we have Dr. Jarrett on board, and I too am very excited. CDB is very excited that this project has started. It was a very major component in their scheme. So we're very excited to see what will actually happen and occur as a result of the study. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glasgow. I now call on Dr. Jarrett, Director for Water Management, AMIC, Foster Wheeler Environment and Infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Charlene and Drexel as well. It's very exciting, and I'm very pleased to be here. So flood risk is a big challenge for the Virgin Islands. Something the Minister set out within the hurricane zone, and particularly with Storm Otto in 2010, some very severe flooding. And those risks with climate change could get more severe into the future as well. So through this project, we hope to be able to contribute to better managing those risks and ensuring that the Virgin Islands is better prepared for flooding. So to manage flood risks, the first thing we've got to do is understand those risks, understand where it might flood, what the consequences of that flooding could be, and then through that understanding, look at how we can be better prepared and better respond to that flood risk. So the starting point for this study is going to be a technical study, as the director introduced, with modelling work, analysis of rainfall data and history that we've got with that, and to put that together to characterise the flood risks within Road Town. Where does it flood? How severe does it flood? How deep is the flooding? How fast is the water flowing? Where are the pinch points and the places of smallest capacity to convey the drainage? Where are the points at which the flooding occurs and comes out of the guts and starts to spread out across the city? So from that characterisation, we'll understand where the critical flooding issues are, and we can then look at how best to respond. And that response is really about two things for me. It's about resistance to flooding, about what we can do to make the flooding less severe, and it's about resilience to flooding. How can we make sure that when it does flood, we're as best prepared as we can be, and that we're in the best possible shape to respond and minimise the consequences of flooding. And through that response, we'll be looking at 4 areas in the project to look at that. Firstly, building the resistance to flooding, looking at water management and drainage works to improve the capacity of the guts and where those pinch points can be addressed. Secondly, we'll be looking at emergency planning, the emergency response planning that Charlene mentioned, and what we can do to be better prepared to react to flooding when it occurs. We'll be looking at how we can be more resilient through ensuring that future development doesn't result in any increase in flood risk. So we'll be working with the Town and Country Planning Department to look at policies and regulations we might be able to support to ensure that future development doesn't contribute to any increase in flood risk. And finally, we'll be working with the community to make sure that the community have got a greater understanding of flood risk, and that the residents and businesses of Road Town are better prepared and more resilient and resistant to flooding to minimise the impacts of flood risk on them. And that's a really, really important part of the study. Everyone's mentioned that so far, and I think that's crucial from a number of areas. Firstly, it's that community experience of flooding that will give us really, really good information at the start of the project to tell us about where the flooding happens, what's the consequences of the flooding, how did it affect people in 2010. And that's a really important part of the study to work at the beginning from. And then through the study, we'll be looking to work with the Department of Disaster Management to engage the community, to disseminate information, to disseminate awareness about how to respond to flooding as well. And Charlene mentioned engagement at the start, during the project, and also at the end of the project. And we've engaged Mohammed Ali Tarabay to work with us and be a representative of the project within Road Town for the duration of the work. So I'm really looking forward to the project, looking forward to working with the Ministry of Communications and Works, with the Department of Disaster Management, with the Ministry of Finance, Town and Country Planning, the Survey Department, and the other departments that were mentioned that are with us as part of the study. And that close collaboration is another really important part. The final stage of the project is the transfer of knowledge, making sure that we're using the project to develop the understanding and the skills within those departments, and hopefully so that we can come out the back end not just with a study that improves the resistance and resilience of Road Town, but a framework that then can be taken out to the rest of the British Virgin Islands. We're not going to make all the flooding go away. There's always going to be a risk of flooding. Storms will always come. But hopefully through the project we can make Road Town more resistant and make Road Town more resilient to flooding. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jarrett. Media, this is your time. You have 15 minutes for questions and answers related to this project and maybe any other CDB funded project.
Hi, good day. Javan Library from the Bay Partner News. Question, is there any specific area in Road Town that the study will focus on? I know that it's a study on Road Town in general, but is there any specific area where you guys have already pinpointed that needs special attention?
Okay, so the study area, the extents of Road Town, and we demarcate them by the guts. So I can remember them, I just don't want to say that one. It goes as far east as the gut before Right Way. And as far west as Poorhouse Bottom Gut. That's the name of the gut. And that's the gut by McNamara. So, and they're about, and the major guts in between there. So we got Huntom's gut, Longbush gut, Everton gut. So the major guts in there. So that's the study area. So the communities around those areas will definitely reap the benefit of this.
Of course, and as regards to community engagement, you intend to have community meetings in each one of those little areas?
To start off with, we're looking to engage the whole community and get as much information as we can do. As we get into the study, start to understand those risks in more detail, we'll start to focus in and target the particular areas that really come out as being the most vulnerable areas. So, yeah.
Let me give you, Javon, the political end of it now. These guys give you the formal names. Basically, as a representative for the 4th District, whenever it rains heavily, I most times jump up my bed, put on my sneakers and the oldest jeans I can find, and I head down to the ghetto. You know where the ghetto is? Crab Lot is the right name. Or I head to that bridge there by the fire station. Or I head down to Main Street by the Georges, because that's some of the hotspot areas that flood. So I know when that happens, and the gut coming down, Longbush gut, Joe's Hill gut, and a number of other guts converge in one area, and the bridge is not high enough, or debris comes and blocks the bridge, that the water flows over and comes down through the city of Road Town, full blast, and creates a lot of problems. And then the little drains in between, and those who know the history of Wickham's Key, that was sea, and they say whenever you take up God's sea, he comes back and take it back from you, land. But if you know the history of it, the land that starts, let me see if I can give you a good point of reference. You know where Josh Bakery is? Right there, the sea was up to that point before. All along there, right up to where Right Way in town is, all of that was seawater once ago. So we filled it in, and we put drains in between, but they're smaller drains than probably they should be, I don't know. We'll find out from the study. So whenever it rains from the hills above and the water comes down at a pace that the guts can't handle to get it to the sea, it backs up into the people who live there, Crab Lot area, along Main Street, and so on. And therefore you get flooding. What's that? Fatima's? Who knows what Fatima's is? The store right behind Virgin Queen, a little clothing store there. They have had tremendous problems when it rains heavily. They call me right away, I have to go down. And we know the problems that created it. So those are some of the practical things that we know about that happens whenever it rains heavily. I would have to run and get public works team. They will get engaged others in my district, my area, to bring out their little equipment to clear the guts quickly, even while it's raining, especially the one by the fire station where the water backs up there. So those are some of the practical things that happen. That every time a heavy rain comes, even now since 2010, we get the similar problems once again. So we fix the symptoms of those problems, but I think the idea here is to get a better appreciation of what we need to do to fix the problem. Not totally, I'm sure, because whenever you have more than you can handle, but at least to address it more comprehensively. And that's the idea here. So I'll give you a little clearer picture, Trevor.
Lastly, Minister, you've been stressing for some time how major of an issue this is. It was also highlighted that the study will last for 10 months. How soon after the study will the government order? How soon after does the government intend to actually start work?
Well, it depends on what comes out of the study, and depends on what pressure Ms. Dabria puts on us over here from the disaster management point of view. But just kidding. But it depends on what comes out and what recommendations will be made of what we need to do. And it won't happen overnight, obviously. Suggestions will come forward. Do we need to lift the bridge? Do we need to make the drains wider? Do we need to drain them better? You know, the one that comes from Bobby's, you look between Bobby's and, along Bobby's and Bolos that goes out to the sea. That drain, I think it's this way coming into the land rather than that way going out to the sea. Or it's too low or something. You tell us what's wrong. Because whenever it rains, basically seawater is higher. The sea level is higher than the drain. So it comes back in rather than going out. So once we get to understand those types of things, then we can start correcting them bit by bit as we go along. I know more than likely we'll be asked, and we've been looking at this before, to raise the bridge by the fire station. I don't know if that will come out to recommendations or what may come out, but that might be one of the projects we have to look at. But then we'll take it one at a time and see where we go. Feel free to ask me any questions on general CDB projects that you like, or any infrastructure programs. I may open it too wide, but feel free to ask any of the questions.
I think we have to understand that mitigation is not all about the structural elements of a community. It talks about how do people change behavior. And we have some practices in the BVI that we need to start addressing. A lot of people dump things into the guts and the waterways, and the education and the mattresses and so on, yes. We need people to change that behavior and understand the fragility of our environment and how important it is for our economic stability. So that is a major part of the project, really engaging the community. But it will be difficult for me to sit here and have our viewers or our listeners think that nothing has been done. There's been a lot of investment in Road Town to address the flood hazard. When Otto occurred, we had an event that cost us more than $10 million, and we had claims of over $400,000. And there's been a lot that has been done through the government and through the city managers program to look at the issue of flooding, to create a greater awareness, and to address some of the behavioral practices that are not in keeping with good disaster management or good development practices. So I just wanted to make that point because Nick presented some photos to us of a walkthrough that he had done with Mohammed. And I'm very happy that Mohammed is on board because he lives in the Road Town area. He's a BV Islander. He understands the issues. And he can also reach out to the Spanish-speaking community, which is a major part of the Road Town population. But one of the things that Nick presented to us is that people are already making some personal changes in their structures. So you see the steps have been risen, the windows are higher, the doorways are raised, and maybe he can speak a little bit more on things that people have already started to do. Flood preparedness is not a government responsibility alone, it's an individual responsibility, and everybody has to get on board. And that's why we want the project to be seen as a project for all, not just something that is driven by the government. People have to feel that they are part of it, because if they do, then they will see that they need to make that change, make that behavioral change. So we are focusing a lot on community engagement and a lot on community education.
Of course, and on that note, Mr. Abreu, could you just highlight how exactly will the project engage the community? Is it only through town hall meetings or walkthroughs? And
Sure. The Road Town community is made up of different groups. So we have a large Spanish-speaking community. We have a large elderly community in Road Town. We have individuals who are disabled. We have business communities. And at about 7 o'clock and you walk through Road Town, there's not much activity. So we have to develop the community engagement model to really address those target groups. So we are going to focus on businesses and have specific type of engagement. We will have focus groups. We're going to apply surveys. We're going to have one-on-one consultation. In my opinion and my years in disaster management, the most powerful stories you get are from the elderly people in the community. And we need to find them and we need to get them to tell us their stories. And we did that last year for IDDRD, and it was so profound, the stories that were told, that talks about the history of the BVI and the impacts. And when you look at the impact from 2010, a lot of the elderly people who are 60 years and above can relate that to Hurricane Donna. So it really tells a lot about the whole issue of climate change and what that change is doing to the BVI's environment and what it's doing to weather patterns and rainfall patterns.
So a little more there, Javon, you know, it's the internet age, and so I'm sure we can engage you persons through the internet media, you guys media, all of you, and get pictures, get stories that way that can show us certain things. One of the ways that I have been able to help to manage some of the emergency situations that we have through the territory now, that people send me pictures on Facebook or of something in a certain area, I take it and I hit the forward button to a bunch of my team. They all get tired of me now. I sent about 10 of them one time and I say, guys, this is a problem, then I get everybody scrambling. So the internet and the WhatsApp and all the other things that you have, they'll be helpful in this, I'm sure, where people can send information forward or make suggestions that can help.
Very much so. Just to add to a couple of points there. Certainly, photos, video, internet really help to kind of add to the archive of information that helps to characterise and understand the existing flood risks in Road Town. And just following up on Mr. Abreu's comments there on some of the things we were looking at just yesterday, going out around the catchment with Mohammed this week. We were looking at some of the buildings round the back of Main Street, round towards the Crab Lot area. I'm starting to get my geography of Road Town is coming together, and seeing bits there where people have already taken action to just raise the thresholds on their doors, raise some of the entrances into there. Some of the houses are slightly elevated in there. And it's things that when we get a storm auto type thing, it's not gonna make a difference. But when you get the annual storms, the storms coming through in the autumn, those are the things that might not make a big difference in terms of the overall flooding in Road Town, but it makes a big difference to you as a homeowner. Those few inches could be the difference between water inside your house and no water inside your house, and that's obviously a massive impact for you as the householder in there. And so the starting point is to take that from some people that have put those good works in and extend that out so that that's something that's consistent and common across the communities, and that everyone, I think a phrase that I like in that, everyone knows their flood risk and they know how to respond to that.
I'll give you a follow-up on what I was talking about the media. I'll give you a quick story. A gentleman kept bugging me about the flooding problem in his area. It wasn't in Rotan, it was Rogues Bay or somewhere up there on the mountain. And how it was affecting his home and the neighbors, and a bunch of them were living in the area. And he kept telling me about the problem, and I said, yes, we're going to fix it. I sent out a public works team. They made their own assessment, came back, and he didn't think they were assessing the right way based on what he had seen with the flood damage. So one day I got a WhatsApp with a full video of the rain coming down and the flooding his area. You could see everything happening. It was disastrous. And that is what got me to act right away, send the team down there with that. They made corrections, made adjustments. He's a lot happier now. But, you know, we must use all the tools that we have at our disposal to be able to make an impact. The most recent one, I think, came out on my Facebook, where somebody sent me a picture of the water running down the hill and the mud going down into affecting the turtles. But the main thing was that the conservation of fisheries couldn't get to the turtles to protect them when they come in to lay their eggs. And so we were asked to fix the road, but they didn't wait for me to go and see it. They sent me all the pictures of what was happening. My team jumped on it, and we fixed the road, but they're still not satisfied yet. So I understand I have to pave it now.